Hello, and welcome to Who Books That with Harrison Greenbaum. I am your host, Harrison Greenbaum, and this show, as always, is presented by the International Brotherhood of Magicians. A huge thanks to them. They are a wonderful organization. They've been doing incredible things for now 3 months going during this quarantine shutdown period. They've been absolutely unbelievable. And if you'd like to join them or renew your membership, it's so easy. All you have to do is go to magician.org/join the IBM/join. So easy. Make sure you put dashes between the join, the and the IBM. Make sure you support an incredible organization. And as always, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, just go to @HarrisonComedy. That's all you got to do, @HarrisonComedy. And this podcast, this live stream / podcast has reached its 20th episode, which is insane. This show is almost old enough to drink, which is very exciting. And it is available, as I just mentioned, as a podcast on Apple Music or iTunes, depending on how up-to-date your software is. Just go to whobooks.com for more info. Whobooks.com, you access all the episodes and just click the link and download the entire show as a podcast. Please leave a 5-star review. We really, really appreciate that. And make sure the show is more visible. And unbelievably, this show is in the top 200 in the US and the UK for performing arts podcasts, and in the top 100 in Canada, which is great to know that we're in the top 100 in Canada, because our next guests for this episode are in Canada as we speak, which are the biggest fans of this show, it seems. I'm going to chug maple syrup if I have to, because I'll be #1 in Canada if it kills me. I am so excited for our guests. And before we do that, by the way, a quick happy birthday to Mike Caveney, who turned 70 today. He's been on this program several times, most recently last week as part of the Left-Handed League. There was a whole reunion. If you missed that, how did you miss that? It was amazing. You got to get on there. So check out the old episode. That was Jay Johnson's episode. So a happy birthday to Mike Caveney, who's been on the show a bunch of times. But now to our guests for the evening. I could not be more excited. I love doing the research on all of our guests. I get to call up and be very snoopy. I call their friends, their colleagues, people they've worked with. And one of the things that's amazing is with people like our next guest, there's something that gets said by everybody. In the case of these two guests, everybody I called unanimously talked about how incredible these people were. And I have to agree. They are incredibly professional, incredibly kind, incredibly wonderful. They're just incredible all around. And I think it's a testament to the fact that when I asked people to tell me what they thought of these people, every single person had the same answer, which is just, they're the best people in the world. We love them to death. And I think you're going to love them to death too. They were nominated for Stage Magician of the Year by the Academy of Magical Art. That's the Magic Castle. They won the Sarmati Award from Siegfried and Roy. They have been on Masters of Illusion and on Fool Us, 2 shows that are on the CW. They tour all over the world. They're coming to us tonight internationally from Canada. Make some noise. Get excited from your apartment or home. It is the EVASONS. Jeff and Tessa Evison, everybody. How you doing?
Hey.
Hello.
So good to be here. We're at 19 years old drinking age in Canada.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Come on over.
Here you go. I need to cross the border quarantine for 2 weeks, and then my show could have drunk last week.
And you can drink maple syrup anytime, so you don't have to worry.
We bring it up from the States. It's cheaper in the, oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was a sneak preview, by the way. That was a sneak preview.
Wow.
You know what? I wanted to see that picture recently, so it's still a shock for me when I see it.
Well, let's jump right into it, because I one of the things that has been fun about your episode is that I have not nailed down all of the details about your biography. You have a mysterious origin, and I would love to get into it. You guys met back in 1983. Can you walk us through those moments? Did you like each other immediately, or did you guys come to an agreement?
Well, we were put together for a fashion show. I had been working in radio, and I was hosting a fashion show. My roommate at the time one of his good friends was a designer. Tessa was a model. And she asked me, I did a magic show, and I had just moved to Toronto, didn't have a partner yet, an assistant in the show. And the designer said, well, why don't you use a model and do some illusions, and I'll send one over to your apartment. So the knocked on the door, and it was Tessa. And we did the broom suspension, the zigzag, mutilated parasol, walking around.
The mutilated parasol was the first one, which is cool. And our mutual friend, Lisa, who I was working with, I did a number of shows with her. She did amazing fashion shows, up and coming Canadian designer. And she just said with me one day, I'm thinking of having a magician work with one of the models. And I was just like, I want to do it. Although I had no idea anything about magic at that time. I was just really pumped. And we just hooked up. As soon as we met, we just connected, and we did this performance on the runway, and it just went over gangbusters. So,
and within a year, we were working on cruise ships and traveling up in the Muskoka area. It just kind of really took off for us.
And at what point did you enter into a relationship where you were working together first? At what point did you realize this is going to be more than just a working relationship?
Well, we each had other partners. I was living with somebody, and Tessa had a boyfriend from Barbados, and we had a really good working relationship for a few years. And my dad used to always say, if you're interested in Tessa, I really like Tessa.
Hey, Dad.
Your dad knew something.
He did. We used to have girls from Barbados and Venezuela. They'd come and live with us because we had a spare bedroom. And he loved to bring people up and help them out in college and whatnot. Send them to the local college, and they'd live with us. So we always had people from the Caribbean living at our house. My dad really loved the aura, the culture and whatnot.
Well, that's Jeff's side of the story. But as soon as I met him, actually, it was like love at first sight for me. So when I started to do magic with him, it would be like, okay, you need to get in this box. I'm going to put some swords in. I'm like, yeah, whatever you want me to do, I'm doing it. I'm all in. But the great thing about it is we have an instant connection. I had moved back from living in the Caribbean to Canada. And so meeting Jeff, he was very in tune with the Caribbean people. So I felt at home right away. And I was going out with this guy from Barbados. But when he came up to visit with me, like a few months after I'd moved there, he saw Jeff and I together, working together, hanging out together. And he just said, you know what, I'm going back to Barbados because one day you two will wake up and you'll realize you were meant for each other. And that just took about another 5 years before we got around to it, though.
we were on a cruise ship, and we'd been on the ship for maybe 2 months. Same cabin, 2 separate beds, those little wee tiny children's beds that they give you. And, the next morning we woke up in the same bed.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
And that was it.
I heard
we were a couple.
And you guys can confirm or deny this, but I heard that it took a while for you guys to actually get married. How long between dating and marriage?
Well, we lived in Canada for most of those first 20 years, I suppose. In Canada, after 3 years or maybe 2 years, they have a common law. So you, according to the law of the land, you are married. 50% of whatever you own, it goes to the other person, the home and whatnot. So we always thought, well, we are married. Neither of us is religious, so it didn't matter to us.
The ceremony, yeah.
When we moved to the U.S., I had a thing where I had to have tonsils removed, and you suddenly realized
that's so romantic.
Yeah, I know.
That's every girl's dream.
Well, we thought, here she wouldn't even be able to get into the hospital to visit me,
right? Because they have these privacy laws if you're not married. So we're like, okay.
So yeah, it's not that we were ready to marry. In our eyes, we were married, but by the law, we had to in the States.
Well, it actually happened in Vegas. We were attending a Psychic Entertainers Association conference that was held in Vegas. And we thought, well, when we get back home to Annapolis, we'll have it done. But a really good friend of ours from Germany, Ralph Froelich, when he heard we weren't married, he was just like beside himself. He was like, okay, we're doing it today. That's it.
And we did.
And he just organized the whole thing. And next thing we knew, we were getting married. So it was like awesome.
And on the magic side, I want people, you mentioned doing the illusions together and jumping right into that. I wanted to give people a little taste of that. So I'm going to play this very brief video, a little taste of early Jeff and Tessa. A little taste, and here's another taste from that same show of a classic of magic, The Snowstorm. So that's take us back to that moment. Where is that video happening? Is that on a cruise ship at that point, or is that on land?
That was our first ship. Don't you love the live band behind?
Yeah.
Remember? Maybe you don't remember those days. You always had to have
always
charts.
had a live band. It was great. Yeah.
First cruise ship in the 80s, maybe 85, something. I can't remember
right
the
around
year.
there.
And Tessa, she rehearsed from the Tarbell course, that snowstorm. That's where it came from, in the cabin. I think she was pretty good. I only saw that video. I think I posted that within the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Totally forgot about it. Clearing up some hard drives, and there it was. And I think she did an awesome job on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was fun. I really loved doing it. And then when we worked on the cruise ship, I mean, we worked 6 nights a week in those days, 2 shows a night. And then they also wanted you to fill in the afternoon. So we did an afternoon tea and we do some magic. So I did a little bit of magic there, whatever I'd learned along the way from Jeff. So it was fun doing it. It was a lot of fun.
And I also found one of the easy ways you were drumming up an audience. This is an old clipping. That's you floating in front of a church. Can you tell us a little bit about how you used this church stunt in order to drum up some audience?
That's a Jeff thing for sure.
For years, we did a phone show. Do you know what that means by a phone promotion show? And we would have, I think at one point, 17 to 20 different rooms running across Canada. We learned from Stan Kramian, and he had this course by mail order. So we set it up, we'd hire promoters, and every town, to help sell tickets, we'd go in and on the street in front of the newspaper, we'd do the broom suspension. And it generally pretty much guaranteed us front page coverage of that night's paper, which helped sell tickets the next day when people would call and they could say, did you see the newspaper last night? Well, that show coming to town, they'd sell tickets. In Toronto, we just called the Toronto Sun, I think that was, and said, there'll be a woman floating in the air in front of, is it St. Paul's Anglican Church, if I'm not mistaken, this afternoon. And sure enough, they showed up. And that was, I think, inside, not front page, but inside front page of the Sun.
Which is good for that paper. Yeah.
And we weren't promoting anything particular. I think we were at the CNE that year, Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. And I think it was just to promote our shows over there.
And how did you make the transition from what people consider like traditional magic illusion into what you guys are famous for? You arguably and probably the best second sight act that's working right now.
I think we were always in the back of our minds, we were like, what are we going to transition to? Because, we were doing entertainment all our lives and couldn't imagine doing anything else. But we knew we couldn't keep doing those illusions as we got older, and our bodies change. It's hard to keep everything in perfect shape. So we were just keeping our minds open for another opportunity. And then I think it was Richard, our friend,
a very good friend of mine from high school, and I later worked at the radio station with him in my hometown in Canada. We both worked. He worked after me, night show. I did afternoons. And he would, I'd hang out with him for a while. We had a Watts line back then. It's before 800 numbers. You could call anywhere in North America on this number, which was a big deal. Long distance used to be a big deal back then. He would call, he'd find out one of the Three Stooges was still alive in a nursing home in Florida. And he would call the guy. Had a relationship. I can't remember which one. He eventually found out that Joseph Dunninger's widow was alive in Clifton Park, New Jersey. And he started calling her, and he became a big mentalism buff. He wasn't much of a performer, but he loved mentalism, and he kind of got me turned on. Fast forward a couple of years, he got married, and he ordered a course through Tommy Tucker. Tommy Tucker invented the 6-card repeat. He's the first one to do it. He showed it to Harry Blackstone Jr. backstage at a theater in Boston, and it took off. Or Harry Blackstone Sr., in fact. So Tommy and his wife Liz did a 2-person act. They taught us, but Richard, my good friend, was the one who introduced us to the idea, the concept of doing 2-person mentalism. And really, there was nobody that, a couple of us around the same era, Jan and Dan Orleans, one of our favorite second sight acts, Glenn Falkenstein and Francis Willard, they came along. But I think that's about it. Maybe an act or two in Europe, but it really wasn't much.
But we were the only ones in Canada also.
For sure, yeah.
It was such a novelty, and it just made our world again take off with this new act that we were doing. That really, it was really hard to describe what it was because nobody knew the words mentalism. So we spent a lot of time, how can we promote this title? And eventually it evolved into us calling ourselves the Mentalist Duo. So that's where that all came from.
And
was there ever a question of who was going to be on stage and who was going to be in the audience? Did you try out both, or was it always Tessa on stage receiving and you in the audience finding the objects and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was always. I think it's a pretty hard thing to do in reverse, and I always compare it to doing the alphabet. You know it in reverse from Z through to A, but try to do it efficiently. And I don't think so. I think it's very much like that. We could do it. We've tried at parties and just playing around, but never on stage. Our first time on stage, we were a couple of years just working it out on the ship. We had a lot of downtime in the cabin during the days, and we thought this is the time to learn it. And it had been about 2 years, and all we'd shown it to, we had some really good friends in the ships that we'd hang out, play, what was our big
Uno
nights. And at the end of the Uno night, we would say, hey, you want to see a mind reading thing? And they were our audience for a few months.
Yeah.
We ran across some hurricane remnants at sea, and the captain insisted we do a show. We'd never done it on stage before. The ship was rocking. There were these, what I used to think were French fry containers all over the ship. They were actually for throwing up for people who are sick to their stomach in these boxes they could fold up. And I thought, where are they getting the fries? And why are they leaving their boxes everywhere in the hallways? Maybe 100 people came out for the show that night. And it was us and a singer, Linda Karen, her name was, and we're still good friends today.
Very good friends. Yes.
We were the two people who did the show that night. And I came out to introduce Tessa on the microphone. I said, ladies and gentlemen, earlier this week, you've seen Tessa levitate, all these things, fire eating. Tonight, she's going to do something she's never done before. Please give her a big round of applause. I didn't know that she was back in the dressing room with the dancers who had the night off. They couldn't dance, but they're fixing costumes. And she's literally sick to her stomach at the thought of having to speak in a mic, which she's never done.
Nervous.
She's never spoken on stage before.
Yeah.
And but she came out. I never knew until afterwards, and killed it. People were all they talked about for the rest of the week was, can you show us something? You know, the magic always gets those. Can you make my wife disappear, or can you make me float in the air, or those comments. But no, the mind reading was, can you tell me my name? Can she do something with my objects? And they were
that was it. We knew realized, this is it. This is the ticket. This is what we've got to be doing. So it just took off from there. But you were asking about who was on the stage and who's in the audience. One of the advantages we had was that, I'll say I used to, I have a phenomenal memory. When I was a young kid growing up in school in the Caribbean, one of the most important things was for you to do very well at school. And if you didn't do well, you get lessons in the evening, the weekend, and even during the summer. So we all worked really hard. And a mutual friend, her father was the doctor of most of us in the town where I lived. And we were learning chemistry. And of course, it's very hard to remember those equations. So she brought this thing she called mnemonics. And that's the first time I heard of mnemonics and how to memorize information that you couldn't really possibly remember. And that really set the platform for me. So when we started learning our act and anything we need to do on stage, I had no problem memorizing it. So I could be holding all kinds of information and spew it out later on during the show.
And I also think there's something about there's like a power dynamic too. Like there are not that many women in magic. There should be more. And I'd love to, if you want to speak on that a little bit, but the idea of you also being in the position of power, you're the one on the stage commanding the attention in that way. And sometimes I would imagine that there's some people who don't know Jeff, that they think Jeff is just your assistant.
Always.
Oh yeah.
Unless they see like a full college show, then they get it.
But they usually go like, so what does he do? What's he here for?
Yeah. After the show, we'll do a meet and greet. They don't want to meet me. They want to meet Tessa. I mean, I'm overblowing it, but it's true. It's really her, and they don't quite. And it's good that they don't understand why I have to be there. Hey, brilliant.
That's like great. So we've done a really super job. I really had a big transition going from magician's assistant to being the lead person on stage. And I always wanted to be on stage or be an entertainer ever since I was a kid, but I was very, very shy. And so just being an assistant and any dance move, that was good. That was good enough for me. But to speak in a mic, and I adapted to that, but be the lead person and have all that responsibility was very hard. But Jeff always kept encouraging me. He just kept pushing and pushing, like he knew I could do more and do better. And that really helped. And I think for women in magic, we don't have always a lot of people to have as our mentor or people to look up to. And certainly in mentalism, that was very limiting. So I really basically just made some stuff up. I just did it the way I thought it would be, or we'd talk about it and figured it out from there and then learned from the mistakes. Did that work? Didn't that work? But there's so many more women out there. It's I just think people don't know about them enough, but that's changing. That's changing a lot. So, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, and and speaking of mentors, I have a couple of photos of you with other people who performed as couples. This is Goldfinger and Dove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That same ship, could I just say what that night was?
Yeah, please do.
It's one of to me, the highlights of working together and our road together. We were on a ship, that ship that you played the video earlier. We were in Puerto Rico, and I used to read in Genie magazine that Goldfinger and Dove were performing at a nightclub.
Wasn't it
or
in
a
the
casino.
Hilton in Puerto Rico?
Maybe it was the Hilton in Puerto Rico. So we took the bus and went down and looked them up, and they're the nicest people. We went over every other Sunday, every 14 days we were in Puerto Rico. We go over and hang out at their condo.
Yeah, it was our day off, which was awesome. So we had such a blast.
And we were working on this new levitation. It was called the Gossamer Flight, which was an Azra illusion, but a two-person. There was no overhead work. It was kind of like a zombie. And then everything would just vanish. But we couldn't quite understand. We bought it from Owen's Magic and had it on the ship with us. But Goldfinger and Dove, we read, they were doing it in their show. And they, as nice as they are, they said, why don't we come to the ship? We'll watch your show, because we were doing a show every night in Puerto Rico. We would be a full show, an hour show. And that's the night they came, and boy, they spent the day in the ship playing with the illusion.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Showing us some moves, and then they went home to change and came back for the show.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since.
It was awesome. It just changed. It was a game changer for that illusion, but it also shifted how we approached all the illusions we were doing. It was just phenomenal. And of course, we're still really good friends with the two of them. So it's so good to have them in our lives.
And here's another couple who are no longer with us, but John Calvert.
Yeah.
Calvert, yeah.
Yeah, he pronounced right. He wasn't French. I don't know why I gave him a pronunciation.
No.
And Tammy, yeah. Oh,
yes, and Tammy as well.
Yeah.
We had a mutual friend, and we used to do trade shows for this fellow. On his 90th or maybe 89th birthday, that night was in Fort Lauderdale. And he was also really good friends with John Calvert and Tammy. And John and Tammy lived up in Jacksonville, Florida. We were living in a sailboat down in Fort Lauderdale. And we went to the party that night, knowing that John would be there. And then we all did a show. Just the four of us, we did a show. I don't think Tammy was on stage. Three of us.
No, just the three of us.
Did a show that night. But we'd run across John a lot of times through the years. The last time we saw him, he was in his 90s. He drove down with no tail lights on his big Cadillac, no indicator working, from Jacksonville to Fort Lauderdale, just to go to this party in a condo building, and then drove home that night.
It was amazing.
Crazy energy.
Yeah.
Lived in a boat too. He lived on a power boat called the Magic Castle.
Well, speaking of living on boats, I know you worked on a lot of cruise ships, but when you weren't on the cruise ships, you were also sailing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that sounds amazing. It sounds like you spent a few years just on the ocean. There was very, very little land.
Yeah, when we worked on the cruise ships and we would see the sailboats around us, we always said that, we want to get a sailboat together. And when Jeff was younger, he used to sail. I didn't really do anything of that kind. And then we decided we would get some lessons, which we did. Actually, I'm glad you're bringing that picture up. That was in St. Lucia. That was the other turning point. We were in St. Lucia, and we hired a captain and a crew and got on this sailboat and went along the island of St. Lucia. I've never seen St. Lucia from the coast, from the water, and we had a phenomenal experience. So as soon as we got home, we thought we're going to start looking for a boat, and we found one, and we started our journey sailing. And
we lived in the Bahamas for a couple of years. Just in the winters, we go down.
That was the last
our
boat we
first.
had.
Oh, that was the last.
Yeah,
boat.
that's right, in Murata. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what a great. Yeah.
Oh God, I didn't even know those pictures were up there. You did some stuff.
I was really sleuthing around.
God. Yeah.
You mentioned when you were transitioning from the illusions into the mind reading act that you were on the boat with the ship. I'm sorry. I know if you say boat, the captain get very mad. The big boy ship. There was a performer named Linda Karen that you mentioned, and she was on Broadway. I believe she was in Showboat on Broadway. An old friend of yours. Let's bring her in. It's Linda Karen, everybody.
Wow. Hey, Linda.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Great.
Always good to see you. We run across Linda, once a year, maybe some every other year.
Right.
Places.
Exactly.
We'll just be walking somewhere and then, oh my God, it's Linda Karen. It's like, what?
Man.
Wherever in the world.
Where was that? That was in New York. I think whenever we go to New York, we look her up. So
Right.
Linda, you were on, do you remember that Captain Salemus?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He
Right.
was quite the character.
Wesley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the first night we broke in the mind reading act was when we did the show with you.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Right, right. And
Yeah.
and I remember you guys rehearsing it, and it was like, well, what's this about? But so we we
Wow.
came to find out. I think that the first picture was after your show at the theater in the Village that I came down to see.
Oh, Monday Night Magic.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Right, exactly. So, which was pretty cool. And then we went out. A bunch of your friends came, a lot of magic people, and we went out to a place in the Village after that. And the other picture was after we all went to see the Amazing Preston a couple of years ago.
Oh,
Because
I
you
forgot
guys
about
what a night.
Yeah.
That was a crazy night, wasn't it? Do you remember he kind of chewed out somebody for going to the bathroom, leaving the theater? And
right.
they got a little lecture.
And he was that's the last person. Lock the doors. Nobody else is going out. Right?
But I thought the last time we had dinner with Gil Eagles, Ken
yeah.
Weber, and Bob Baker. Do you remember we went out in the Village?
And Ken Weber, by the way, is watching for sure. When I put up the church shot, he said, "Never use a church for a Photoshop." For a photo op.
That's
not even the Jew, so ignore it. That's what did you know about churches?
Yeah, that was the last time. That was in the Village as well, a small place. I think I'd had a rehearsal or something and came down to meet you guys after. And so we've met many different places, sort of around the world, because we sort of rendezvoused accidentally in Acapulco one time. I was getting on a ship, and you guys were getting on a ship, and we had no idea that we were going to be there together. And we had a great week or whatever, sailing from Acapulco up to San Diego.
Yeah, that was the days before all these groups that you could connect and see who was where. So it was always a wonderful surprise.
We have to tell. Do you remember the night Captain Salemus came around and took his pipe and emptied it on all of the guys? Yeah, and then he took the Lysol and sprayed everybody's tuxedos. And
he was.
Was he doing that in jest, or was he a mean man?
No, I think he thought it was funny.
Yeah, he thought it was funny, right?
He did.
But we did not.
No. And you know, on a ship, Harrison, I don't know if you've worked on a ship before, but to get dry cleaning done used to be a really big deal. You know, on those older ships.
Yeah, you go out in formal night, you're all dressed out, and as soon as you're done, you take that thing off because there's no way you're going to be cleaning it easily, right? And there's this man coming on with his smoke and his ashes and the Lysol spray. It's like, dude, you know.
He got around to Tessa and me, and I just said, "Don't."
That was it. We're in his bad books from that point forward.
The next day, the cruise director called and said, "Your cabin that you've had," we were on that ship for a couple of years. He said, "Moving cabins." So we were over the propeller with the
his revenge. Yeah. Actually, the cabin we were in before was called the Magicians Cabin, and was a really big cabin, and they had that so that magicians could have their doves and some of their props in that cabin. It was beautiful. So that was the craziest thing, though. Yeah.
I actually stayed in that cabin by the propellers one time, and it was noisy.
Tessa had lockjaw because of grinding her teeth. It was so much stress in her sleep. The cabin used to shake, and all this metal would be a constant. It was very hard to sleep. But
I couldn't eat for about 2 days. I was just sipping through a straw, right?
Oh my God.
You saw in that video, I was so skinny. Everybody's like, "Oh no, we got to get her to eat because she's just going to waste away," right?
Who knew that there was the propeller diet? I'm going to book myself a room right now.
I think there's a book in that. There's a whole series, The Propeller Diet.
You also mentioned the sleeping. I remember we were working at the Magic Castle, and you were tarping up the windows to keep it dark inside.
Oh.
And I always thought it was so funny because Tessa wears the blindfold on stage, but in actuality at night, you're the one who has to wear the blindfold.
Yeah, I don't like the light in the morning, so we carry garbage bags and Gorilla Tape, and it'll pretty much stick. It'll darken any room.
Yes, and sometimes we have to scrape things off carefully. But we believe that we are responsible for getting those beautiful drapes at the castle and the hotel.
Charlie Miller Suite.
Yeah, because Jack came in to check on us for something, and we had the garbage bags up. He goes, "What's all this?" And we just told him the situation. And Jack, he doesn't say anything much. Okay, all right, that's pretty cool. And that's it. The next year when we came around, it's like, oh my God, look at this. So, yeah, it was great. So what's going on with you, Linda? Singing, with a beautiful voice. We miss hearing you.
Thank you. Singing's kind of quiet right now because there's, as you know, there's nothing really happening. I sing with a choir that we do a lot of gigs, private things, and we actually have something coming up on the 4th of July. So let's keep our fingers crossed that might happen in Vermont, of all places. So
wow, cool.
For all the time that I've been the last 3 months in my neighborhood here in Harlem, and now I'm going to be leaving the state, so it's going to be quite a change. So I'm looking forward to it, though.
You've been healthy. You've been good.
Been healthy. Been good. I also work for a public relations firm, so I'm working from home, and
Good.
And I've been doing okay. Getting out, doing some walking lately, so it's all been good.
Awesome.
And Linda, I had heard that you, we talked about the Evasons and their sailing. Have you been with them on any of their sea adventures?
Well, yes.
What happened?
Tell us where what happened.
First, I want to just say that I remember when we were in St. Lucia, I was the one who wanted to take sailing lessons. And I remember us going to a resort one day, and I think they got a sunfish. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. Well, they took off.
We didn't know what we were doing.
I still haven't learned how to sail, but I remember that first day because I was like, oh, we're gonna go to Sandals or whatever it was, and because they got some sailboats there, and off Jeff and Tessa went, and now they're boat owners and everything. But I did sail with them on Lake Ontario once when they were still living in Canada, and we went out on their boat. And there were waves, and I didn't know. I thought the Great Lakes were like any other lake,
just flat.
And that was not the case. And I actually even got, because I remember going down into the cabin below, and that was a big mistake.
Oh, never ever.
I got a little seasick, but and I was so glad to get back on land because I'd never been sick before on a ship. So, but we had a great time. It was wonderful to go out with them. So,
what a great memory! I forgot about that time.
Yeah.
I like how a great memory. The poor lady was sick on your boat.
Well, we were fine, Harrison.
Is it seasick if you're on a lake, or is it lake sick? Yeah,
right.
I just felt green. I had that terrible feeling, but thank goodness that was the worst of it. So
it's funny, people actually do turn green. They don't realize that. They get a shade of green when they get seasick. Well,
really?
Yeah. You don't even notice it's happening. So,
but on the ship, you were fine in the ships. I never remember you as one of the ones.
I have been in very rough weather and been fine, gone out on deck and hung out with band members. Oh, let's go outside, and down in South America, going around Cape Horn, and let's go outside. But I tell you, Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario really did me in that afternoon.
Wow.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you, Linda.
love you.
Follow Linda. Make sure you check her out.
Hi, Larry.
Okay, well. Bye.
Linda Perrin, everybody.
Oh my God.
Wow, that was awesome.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah,
wow.
She's so special.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. I one thing I have noticed is that if you do enough digging on the Evasons, you will find a treasure trove of promotional photos. Somehow Tessa does not age, but Jeff goes through a lot of different hairstyles and costume choices. So here are a few of those. This is one of the other ones.
I saw that one.
I assume those thunderbolts were added after the photo.
Yeah, but it kind of feels like that sometimes,
It's before Photoshop. We had to have that airbrushed in. They took it, and it was a black and white photo that they colorized all by hand. And we sent it into the National Enquirer. and tried to make this story up that we were just taking a photo and these bolts of lightning appeared between us. They never ran it.
The airbrushing does not explain the mullet, Jeff.
It wasn't a mullet, but maybe it looks like that.
Here's another one.
Oh, yeah. Wow. How about that?
So fun.
You can't even read any writing in that with that bright pink. But we have the original of that too. Yeah, that was an artist out of Toronto.
Yeah, who was always really high.
Man.
So, he would come up with these ideas and we'd have to say, save it, okay? And he goes, no, I'll remember. We're like, no, you won't remember.
That's what you always look for in an artist is that they won't remember at all what they've done.
Yeah, his condo always had that stench of marijuana right down the hall.
Well, here is another one. This one's very dramatic.
I think my favorite poster ever.
That is my Victoria's Secret favorite outfit of all times.
He's from a Canadian graphic designer, and there were really good friend of ours, Dale Kay, is a hypnotist, and he did all of Dale's promotional materials, and also, who's now our cruise agent, Andrew Pogson, has a beautiful website, and he has an act called Freddie Fusion. And the same artist did all Andrews. So the three of us had really nice promotional materials for. We can't afford this guy now because he does. He's going way up. He does all the beer, Labatt's beer in Canada, which is one of the biggest breweries. He's big time now.
And this one, I think you guys are in prison outfits.
Oh. Yeah.
That was a show that Bill Hers.
Weren't you going to be a part of that?
Yeah, you were on that show.
I might have that poster.
Mischief Fly.
Right.
Are you in there?
Well, because he had to do
I am actually.
You are.
My head. My head is on the lower right corner.
Right.
That's my head. But Vinny Grasso's body, and we love Vinny, but I don't think he'll be upset if I mention that we have different bodies. His might be a slightly larger body type than mine. So it's my head and Vinny's body.
What a great
has their body.
Eric Diddleman, what a great cast that was. And
Chad Long.
Yeah. So then that show became what is now still happening. Well, not so much today, but they just did one last week, actually. America's Got Magic. And it's the same idea. It just morphed into that show.
This one works. That one didn't go anywhere. But it was fun doing all the photos. We had such a blast. We have so many great photos that we use for promo from it because it was just, we laughed so much. And when we look at the photos, we're like, what were we laughing at? We have no idea. I think it depends on if it was David Williamson or Derek Hughes. Someone was out there doing something while we were doing photos. And it's like, stop, guys.
We were Diddleman, actually. It was Eric Diddleman. Yeah, Eric Diddleman.
Okay.
We were all at
about the mastermind behind those photos. Welcome, Bill Hers, everybody.
Hey, Billy.
Oh, my God.
How are you, Bill?
I'm good. I'm just really thrilled to see that where you are in Canada has internet.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
dig.
Bill, the last time you were on this show was like Blair Witch Project. You were walking around talking into your cell phone.
I was going to be on earlier, but I was like spending like 2 hours getting the tape off the windows where Jeff and Tessa taped.
Yep. At your place.
We did not tape the
No,
windows. No, but we got up earlier.
We thought about it, though.
No, we had shades for you. Don't worry.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. No, but that was a really fun photo shoot. And now we're doing that show, America's Got Magic, all over the place, even
virtually too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so it's doing well. And it's really been fun. And
we did the first one in Connecticut, right? The America's Got Magic. I believe that was the first time.
That's right. Yeah. And then I think, if I'm correct, we were the last show before this whole COVID thing struck in Florida.
Oh, we weren't on that show, but who did that one?
You were. I think you were.
Deloitte. You're right. We did it for Deloitte.
Oh,
yes,
right.
Yes.
And then we went to the other shows.
Yeah, right. That was a little weird.
Maybe it was my last show before the COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was our last corporate event. I think
and last show with you too.
Yeah. That was a little surreal that night because people were in such denial. I remember talking after the show, and people were this will be nothing, and we're kind of on the fence about it. Well, thinking probably it is something, but I remember that well.
That's
show,
great.
fun show.
And that was their last meeting too. Because I was with the planner the other day, and yeah, I mean everything has changed to say the least.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a really fun shoot, and I remember I remember there was one picture that I think you guys still use, where you don't even see the prison outfits, which is
That's
good.
helpful. Without context, that would be a weird move.
Yeah, I was thinking, which one is that?
We reshot one because it was Tessa shaving me. I think I had shaving cream. And she was blindfolded, looking the other way, and shaving me. Oh, with a straight razor.
Yes.
I hope that was a stunt straight razor, or was that an actual straight razor?
Well, when we did it at Richards in Las Vegas at the first time in the prison garb, we just sort of came up with it on the spot, and
wasn't it just a weird kind of a butter knife that looked like
or scissors or something rusty metal thing that sort of looked like a shaving blade.
You know, talking about that, I remember ordering those prison uniforms, and
did you write those off? How do you write that off of your taxes? Do you just put prison uniforms?
I don't think we did, but I do remember the guy on the other line going, "So, what do you need? 12 prison uniforms, all different sizes for?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just a photo shoot." And he's like, "Okay."
They thought you were trying to do a heist. They thought you were the leader of a heist.
I don't know what he thought, but I should have sent him a picture. You know, one thing I was going to say, I didn't get to see everything, but a lot of people don't realize how great those two are at close-up. Not necessarily, but I mean, I've seen them do close-up stuff for people, and I think that's as strong and just as good as the stage stuff. I mean, which is truly amazing. But I've had Harrison. I was telling you earlier. I remember them doing it at a local. I don't know if you guys remember this, at a bagel shop.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We were hanging out.
Close-up mind reading. I love this idea.
Right. It was close-up mind reading, and we ran into some friends, and I didn't even know that, and they did some stuff, and the guy called me the next day and just said, "I didn't sleep last night. What they did is impossible." And then I know we've done it a few other times, but it's truly, you want to blow somebody's mind. They are just, I don't think I've ever seen anything more powerful.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
And we're just talking about maybe doing a Tannen's lecture for the virtual Magic Camp this year. But just the idea of taking some things that we all know and changing it into a two-person thing, I think it's very effective close-up. Some of the close-up tricks. That's not what we did at the bagel shop. I think we just did a typical name or something out of a wallet, but it's always
you did a little bit more, and it was just. I remember every time I see the people, they're like, "Are they coming back?" And I said, "Yeah, if we get the tape off our windows,
Use some Goo Gone. That works. Goo Gone.
Yeah, now you tell me. But they're absolutely amazing. And mentioning Tannen's camp, I don't know if Harrison. I don't even know if you know it. I was the first Tannen's counselor with Paul Cummins. I don't know if you guys knew that.
That's incredible. I'm about to. This will be my 20th year at camp.
Yeah, it's well, Jeff, you guys were there last year.
First time.
Yeah.
First time.
Not killed, by the way. The kids. We had to pick the kids' jaws off the floor. It was complete annihilation. It's so great to see. It's about 100 campers just decimated. You guys.
Were you there that night? Were you there that night?
Me? No.
Okay.
Harrison was.
Yeah. So Todd Robbins was on the show. Boy, who else?
Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm blanking out. But great show that they put on. And the production was fantastic.
Very, very impressed.
Yeah.
It's that camp is so good, and so everyone I know that goes just leaves energized, about what you're doing, and it's just such. And I know what they've got planned for this year, and it's truly. It's virtual, but it's truly amazing what they've got. And,
cool.
Kudos to, that's really where, and you guys are so great with, the kids and sharing information. And it's just, it's what we're all in it for is, pass down the wealth and be energized by these kids who are coming up with all this great stuff. And so it's really fun.
We were really impressed when we sat in on one of the lectures to see what these young kids could do. They were so eager and dedicated, and what they did with cards was just very, very impressive.
It was Shane Cobalt's lecture. I don't know if you know Shane Cobalt.
Yeah, Canadian guy.
Amazing things, and those kids were doing it right along with them. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And speaking of young kids, Bill, what was it like when you saw the EVASONS for the first time? How long ago was it?
What was
that like?
It was a while ago. I mean, it was
a convention,
I think it was Jeff's third hairstyle. I don't remember.
was it frosted or was it back?
All I remember is he had a lightning bolt coming out of his head.
Bill, do you even remember having hair?
No, I don't. But I don't have to worry about how short. I don't have to worry about how short it is either.
Right.
But,
Good.
I remember seeing them and just getting my mind blown. And I remember exactly where it was. I know I was sitting next to Mike Caveney, and we both kind of turned to each other and went, God, that's just, mind blowing, amazing. And then we got to, spend a lot of time after that. And,
we did that show with you, the first one in Connecticut. I remember driving over. You had a tan Lexus at the time, and we did a small corporate event. You went on first, and then we went on. You gave us so many notes. That's the thing about working with somebody like Bill Hers. You get Bill's. If anybody doesn't know Bill, I mean the roster that Bill has on his agency, Magicor, it's incredible. And all those people are so giving and so sharing. But that first night we worked with you, Bill, I don't know if you remember, we'd never seen you work before. You did the pie and the cream pie and show, I guess. But you gave us such valuable feedback after the show. I think that was one of the shows.
I think I said stay in the business.
He gave me the opposite note. He was sending me a note that said quit.
Right. I remember I said to Tessa, get a new partner.
Yeah.
And you've been calling her ever since. Sometimes I answer Tessa's phone and it's
I've auditioned many, many times. It just doesn't seem to work. But
I can't get rid of him, Bill. I've tried.
Wait, him or me?
Him, of course. I'd never get rid of you.
Thank you. No, I remember seeing him perfect. That's one of the few acts that, you just remember exactly where you were, who you were with, and just kind of going, all right, I just got fried, and just, it's one of those great feelings in magic that you just, you absolutely love. And that's why we're in it, and you hope you have that effect on other people. And whether you know what they're doing or not, which, I said to Harrison today, not to get into methods or stuff, but I don't know anyone, and I've discussed this with a million people, that know your methods. I mean, we know basic thoughts, but nobody, I mean, you guys are so far ahead of everybody. It's just truly astounding.
Well, nice of you to say. Very sweet of you to say. I think that we have taken some. I know that we've added and advanced the two-person mentalism, and it's some of the most fun we have is performing for magicians.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of times you'll think, I don't want to work for magicians because the reactions aren't real. They're not the same at all. But what we do get with magicians is they think they know and they do know, and yet they don't know. And with a lay audience, they either they don't care. They don't have that ability to know either way. But man,
I can come right out and say I've seen it numerous times, and I still don't have a clue. And that's true. I have a clue, but I have a clue.
That was a very quick retraction.
I get the basic premise of it, but there's just information that when you guys reveal it, I'm like, there's just not. I can't wrap my head around it. So it's so I feel a couple bookings coming from all this promo you're doing for us here, right? I hope so. By the way, they're available.
We are available.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
Bill,
I will
great
talk to
seeing
you soon.
See you, dudes.
Thank you so much, Bill. And
Thanks
stay
for
safe,
having
stay
me.
well.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Bill. Bye.
One of the
that
things
was
that
wonderful.
I'm going to get to one of the things that Bill mentioned in a second, but a mutual friend of all of ours, Randy Shine, he said, tell Tessa Randy, or Randy, it doesn't make a difference. She will know what I am talking about. Do you know what he is talking about?
What
All
is
right,
that?
Ren.
We're doing a show with him on Friday.
Yeah, Eric Jones, who's producing it, and it's through Liberty Magic in Pittsburgh. You know, that show we were supposed to be on next got canceled because of COVID, but they've been working to get magic out and helping to support the magic community, and we can't wait. Eric and Rand, we've never worked with them before, but it's just been awesome connection so far. So it'll be Friday, 7:30. We'll have more details on our social media. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll put that up. I flashed it before, but it's at the EVASONS on Twitter and at Mentalist Duo. And one of the things that Bill mentioned was talking about Tana's Magic Camp, about inspiring the youth. And you've done that quite a bit. There is somebody here who I believe you met when he was just 19. And he is a professional performer as well. Make some noise, get excited. Coming to you from Orlando, Florida. Del K, everybody.
What's in that cup, Dale K?
Del K, what is in that cup?
Man, Dale K, he's our bestest. Awesome. We've been in business with Dale and good friends since when Dale used to come to see us in London.
Early 90s. I stalked these two down at a fair, and the sword basket. You had owned a sword basket that belonged to somebody, and somebody else.
Doug Henning. It was Doug Henning's basket.
Doug's assistant. I don't remember, but
Yep.
it got into my hands, and I remember that was the leverage and conversation I was going to use. After your show, I went up and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Evanston, I own your sword basket," because I had nothing else to present to the conversation. And you guys, since day one, were just so open, welcoming, and for the rest of that fair, the next 7 days, I think I showed up and continued to stalk you. So thank you for tolerating me.
Oh, that was so fun. I remember we'd see you during our performance, and after the show, we come out and it's like, where did he go? He left. So we decided one show, okay, that's it. As soon as we're finished the show, we're going to run into the audience and grab this kid, whoever he is, and get a hold of him. And that was it. It was just awesome.
And also with you, we went to see Kreskin that week.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
He was at the fair.
So
yeah.
Linda, who you met earlier, she was on.
It's funny because a lot of the stories and things that I remember because of you, almost riding on your coattails, going places with you two, being so well loved and known. I got to rub elbows with people that I just have always been in awe of. So so many doors were open because of you two. So I can't thank you
And
enough.
also, not just doors, but also boats. There you are on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Many of those.
That was back when Jeff liked to drink rum, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Still,
but
that's a good pirate drink. That fits with the nautical theme.
It's true.
and speaking of hair, Dale used to have some great hair.
Oh.
We should show some of those photos.
We got them blackmail.
We should show your dove act. That's what we
Well,
should do.
we already talked about that, and we're not going to do it. I don't think we're going to do it.
Harrison, you talk about mullet and glitter. This guy, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I used to like my glitter, man.
Bill was cracking me up, laughing at Bill, but he's so right. I'm probably one of the people.
I have at least one dove pick. It took me a second to find it, but I do have it.
Jeff, was that Magic Castle, the Dale Harney show in Canada? Is that what that picture's from?
That photo?
Yeah.
Oh, about two. That's the 1975, I think, maybe 76. I had my best friend at the time in Cornwall and I were magicians. His name was Anthony Lee. And we got booked on a TV show in Canada called Uncle Willie and Floyd. And there's Barb Wallinger, also from Cornwall. Three of us were high school friends and did shows at seniors' homes and whatnot. And we got booked in this Uncle Willie and Floyd TV show. And I'd seen it when it aired. I had seen then. That was 70, whatever, and had never seen it since. 2 months ago, I get a message from somebody on Facebook who wasn't a friend, just messaged me to say, "Hey, are you the same Jeff Evison? I remember seeing you and Uncle Willie and Floyd. I have a videotape of that." And I said, "I have to have that video." And so he said, "Oh, no, it's, I don't have a way to transfer it." And I said, "No problem. I'll send you a device that'll transfer it." Oh, and he just didn't want to do it. And in the end, he said, "I'm sorry I even told you." And I said, "Listen, don't be sorry. I'll pay you. I just would really like to get the tape." So I contacted Peter Meny in London. And Peter went over and picked the tape up from the fellow. And anyhow, long story short, we got it. And I haven't seen it since 75.
And I've never seen it
She'd
till
never
then.
seen it and just saw it in the last couple of months and took that screenshot.
Yeah, he needs to share that video.
No, I don't. No.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
No, I
love,
never realized I was so bad.
You can tell what kind of person you are, because if somebody called Dale or I up and said, "I have a very embarrassing video of you," we would say, "How much clothing are we wearing?" And you just had to say, "Is it the one with the doves?"
So true.
It reminds me, I used to.
Wait, which part of it? The nudity or the doves?
All of the above.
Shall we dig another layer? Because we've got stories.
I trust you.
For me, I want to put the spotlight.
Don't worry, Jeff. I can take him out at any moment.
Yeah, okay.
He's got.
I'm not getting paid to be here, so listen.
We are.
We'll share with you.
I gotta go. I got a show. Looking back at the old footage and everything, it just reminds me of, I would call, this is in the 90s, early 90s, before World's Greatest Magic, before a lot of your TV stuff. I remember calling you, hoping you would talk to me in the first few years of knowing you. And what I remember most is that, and I told Harrison this earlier, you would be talking, but I could hear Tessa and you, the pitter you guys were hustling.
Stop.
You were working so hard to hit. And that helped me realize how much work is behind the scenes. And you mentioned Peter. I just saw Peter's in here. I haven't seen him in years, but it was workers like that if I wasn't exposed to, I wouldn't be here. And I think over the years, the bonus has been to see you two work in every situation. And I've worked with you. I've worked after you. I hate following you.
Oh, yeah, but we feel the same about you. So
yeah.
Come on, that's mutual.
And then all the trade.
The whole hour-and-a-half show is you fighting over who's going to go on. And then this is over. Neither of you have performed.
Bill, they really do tape up the windows. It takes them 3 hours. It takes them 3 hours to check into a hotel room.
And he's not lying.
That's true.
Well, maybe it's an hour.
And it takes them 3 hours to do a sound check. It's so entertaining. It's amazing. But
I have a picture of you guys together. It's an important one. Here's a picture. You're in there all the way on the left. There's a Darren Brown in bright light over there. There's Tess and Jeff. And there's also all the way. Who's all the way on the right?
Michael Dubois.
And his beautiful girlfriend, I was going to say wife, but Victoria Grimmy.
And I don't know who the other.
Oh, that's you.
You know what? Now that you mention them, let's bring them on.
Hey, we miss you guys. We miss you. How are you?
Hey, do you always put that up in your bedroom? That banner of that?
Usually,
Have that banner.
That's next to the bed, but we brought it in here for today.
Are you guys under the covers right now?
What's that?
What is right in front of the poster?
It looks like you're under the covers.
We're on the ground. We're leaning up against our pool table. We have
gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you guys at the estate?
We're good. Today was a good day, so we're happy. We're for a bit and trying to stay positive.
Yeah, it's we haven't touched base with you, and we just feel like we're all probably going through something. But
zombies just floating around.
It's really funny. It's like we have good days and days where it's like you feel paralyzed and you're walking in circles, and more stuff gets canceled further out, and we're kind of like, okay, I guess the whole year could be gone, and what's the difference at this point?
Hey, we get you. We have been on our way to Canada. What the hell?
Wow, this is wrapping it up very quickly.
I can feel that.
Poor Tessa doesn't know what's happening. She's blindfolded.
What's that?
That Tessa doesn't know what's happening. She's blindfolded.
I know everything when I'm blindfolded.
I want a costume like this. Sorry.
And the backstory here is Dale and the Evasons, who've always been the best and sort of included me into their group in the college market. So I've got a bunch of banners that go to our trade shows. So because they're with me, we get to use them when we feel like it.
Yeah,
I heard that you were performing at Michael's college. That's how you first met.
Yeah, it was funny when Dale mentioned that. So when I went to Penn State, we were lucky enough that we had a magic club that was started by Francis Minotti. And then my best friend and partner, Chris Chelko, and I had a magic show. And we met Dale and the Evasons, and we begged them to tell us all how do we become professional entertainers. And the first year, they were, I wouldn't say brushed us off. They couldn't have been sweeter. And then eventually, it led into a thing. And then, we've been friends since, I guess, 2002, 2003. We've always been admired
together in the
college. Are the best. And the one thing I admire about them, and everyone should know about them, they're the most ethical, straight to the point people I've ever met in my life. And it's one thing I love is that if they ever have an issue about someone taking material or someone else's, they always have your back and they'll always tell you right to your face. There's never any nonsense. They're the best. And I've seen it happen. It's the best. And I also sit back and laugh really hard because it makes me laugh so much.
What have you seen? Tell me some stories.
Well, talking about stories, I do want to re-reference this picture because I was talking to Michael about this before. There are some very important people in this photo. But did everybody know who everybody was at the time?
Yeah, this is the most amazing night. And especially because, the group of us, we get to spend so much time when we're at conferences together, but that's only a couple times a year. So it's, for so many performers, a lot of our greatest friends are not local to us. So we went to see Darren Brown in New York City, and Jeff and Tess set up that we're going to go have a meal after. And Darren's like, can I include my friends? And we're like, oh, of course. And we show up and we're like, holy shit, that's Claire Danes, her husband. And then the guy in between Darren and Dale, that's Tommy, who was the director of Hamilton. And we know who these people are, but you don't just by first name, you don't think about it. And we're at the table, and Victoria here was in a Broadway show called Pippin. And Jeff was so excited to tell Tommy about it, who's a Broadway guy, and pumping us all up. And Tommy's so ashamed because you're like, oh, what show were you in? And then he says, Hamilton. And we're like, holy, the biggest show ever in the universe. Yeah. And then
kind of won the game.
Yeah, Jeff, we were just dying because Jeff was so sweet with Claire Danes and was like, what do you do? And she's like, I'm trying to have a promising career. And then, gosh, I just remember leaving that night, and Jeff said, what a sweet young lady. I really hope it works out for her. And I'm like,
I had no idea.
I was sitting beside him, and when it started, I thought, I know he has no idea because he doesn't know who actors and actresses are. So I thought, that's what funny. A great show. I can't wait to watch it.
And you know what? The thing is that it was probably like the best night for her because it wasn't about her. And she got to be a normal person. And it was probably so enjoyable.
I like to remember.
What was that, Victoria? We couldn't hear what you said.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, her husband came up and said it was just so nice to have a conversation. Even Tommy, the only reason we even found out about, thanks to Jeff, was something about, he's like, oh, I think I know Andrea Martin. Remember that?
Yeah, he knew people in common with it were on the show event.
And then he's like, and then Jeff was like, I know exactly somebody, how can I sort of correlate this? And then it became
it was the best.
I was like, I definitely know some people.
That's amazing. And also, I love that. I'm sure when Darren introduced the Evasons, they probably said, these are two psychics. They can read minds, but could not pick up on how famous they were.
So,
well, Tessa did. I was the only one who didn't know.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And I wondered why everybody was looking at me with these grins on their faces and didn't realize till we left.
That was so funny because it was your tone. You kind of leaned in and go, and Claire, what is it that you do?
I know. I'll never forget that.
And Dale, before I let you go, there's a photo that involves
innocent.
Yeah, I love it. But Michael, Victoria, and Dale are involved in this photo. I'm unclear of what's going on, so I would love an explanation. But it's this photo.
Oh my God. Oh, I think we were. Was that the time Vic and I were doing a Disney cruise? Yeah, and we got into Orlando, and Dale took us for a walk and showed us all his friends, and we met the duck.
I used that picture from my Tinder profile.
I think the swan was stalking you guys.
Yeah.
I thought that photo had something to do with the EVASONS. I had no idea that this is just a simple picture of a swan.
Yeah, that's just us.
Dale, there's one more surprise guest to get to. But Dale, it must be. It's so cool that like they took you under that. Jeff and Tess took you under their wings when you were young. And what is it? What would you say the biggest influence or thing about them has inspired what you do now?
Well, I too carry black tarp and duct tape everywhere.
Fair.
There's a sense of professionalism there. There's nothing for me. I'm seeing a professional working and something that would normally make a less experienced act crack under the pressure, seeing them handle it so it's effortless and it's not noticeable. I love that. Being a real pro, just and under any circumstance. And to add to that point, World's Greatest Magic, you can go back and look at that. I don't know if that was 2 shows that you did, whatever, 2 tapings. But if I remember, Jeff, you had food poisoning. Like you were sick.
I was so sick. So.
God. And you couldn't tell at all. Like you guys crushed it.
Love that show.
I didn't have a voice up until those times when you get on stage and it all comes back. But leading up until up to the show, I couldn't speak, hoarse and whatever. But we pulled it off. But I just got to tell if people, a lot of magicians maybe don't know Dale K, as it is DaleK.com. And Victoria and Michael, oh my God, they are such an amazing act. So check them out.
We're going to out you, Victoria.
Yeah. Harrison, I got one more funny little anecdote.
Oh, before we get to that, let me thank Dale. Dale, thank you so much for being part of this. I appreciate it. And it feels weird to have just 3 squares on. So let's invite another couple who are fantastic performers. They're coming to us all the way from the other side of the country. We have literally the home map. We have Canada, New York, and we're gonna throw in California. Make some noise, get excited for the Bornsteins, everybody.
Hey,
you guys.
Hey, Kimberly, how you doing, Jeff?
Sorry we're late. We just had a gig at a bagel shop.
Where it looks like you're in a bagel shop. Yeah. Where are you?
We're home. We're home.
Oh, this is not your home, though. Is this a green screen?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes. It's virtual.
I like that. You can immediately clock a green screen, but you can't clock Claire Danes from 2 minutes away.
The board.
Michael, what were you saying, by the way? I don't want to cut you off. So, Michael, what were you saying? And then we're going to shift over to the Bornsteins.
Well, the funny thing was that I remember years back, so Vic and I have been flying together forever. And as a couple, it's always like when you're touring, especially colleges, there may not be the budget. So, we're all hardcore Southwest people because of the companion pass and all this. And for years, I'm like, Jeff, what's your secret? What do you do? And he's like, we wear masks on the plane. And thinking years back, we're like, these people are crazy. And Jeff's like, nope, we sit aisle window. We put our masks on. Nobody ever sits with us. And I'm like, you guys are so smart. And bringing that back to now, it's like, can you imagine? I mean,
this is a photo. I went through all of their photos. This is a photo from 2014. I could have sworn it was a photo from recently. They buck the trend. They've been way ahead of the times.
It used to work. Yeah.
About this and saying that I need to now put on like special, a font saying that it's not me, it's you.
I thought, because I didn't have the context, I thought you were just trying to be safe on the plane, but I like that that's just a technique to preserve whatever seats were open around you.
Yeah. Sits in the middle when there's 2 stick people.
Yeah. Stick-looking people.
Well, that's awesome.
What's awesome is right now everybody on the screen is in a couple where you guys perform together. The Bornsteins, let's kick off with you. What is the secret to making that work? And what have you noticed in the EVASONS that you have either incorporated or you might have taught to them?
She's always right. 2 words. Yes, dear. And that's it.
You learn well, Jeff. Good for you.
That is great.
We think they are the best at what they do. They're our idols. They're just amazing people, and they're just beautiful from the inside out. And we just love you guys.
We
so
actually
much.
we actually started doing this. We've been doing our second side act for 11 years now. For 3 years, we didn't watch anybody on purpose. We didn't want to be accused of like, well, they did this, they took that, blah blah blah. But what a lot of people don't know, Jeff and Tess know, is that I did a second side with a guy named Len Reed. I don't know if you guys know Len Reed, Jeff, Tessa, gentlemen. I was the one underneath the blindfold 25 years ago. I didn't like it, but I did it.
Oh.
Now I know. Now, so I actually empathize with what you girls go through. I'm like, this.
Oh yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Anyway.
There, there's a lot of second sight acts, and these two, we become good friends with them, and more for whatever reason, we just clicked. I know Kimberly and Tessa.
She's been really supportive.
They have a really special a connection between the two of them.
It's been really good to talk with someone who does a similar act, because there's specific issues you have that nobody else will get unless you're wearing a blindfold or doing this or working with your husband in this specific context. And so we've given each other, shared a couple of little tips that really help us on those problematic moments. And it's been good to have that. So love you guys for that.
Is the key to a second act, a really good second sight act, is it having the guy named Jeff? Is that like a key? You need a Jeff. Is that what?
I gotta tell you a funny story. I told Jeff and Tessa this. We're on doing a.
We were on. I think it was a Princess.
No, it was on the Holland America. One of the damn ships.
Oh, God.
And so it's our first time doing this particular ship. This ship. We've done a few other ones. And CD comes up to us. He goes, "Oh, welcome back, guys. You guys are amazing. I remember when you were here like last year." And we already know what he's talking about. He's talking about you guys were there. And we just kind of played along going, "Yeah, you guys were amazing. You did X, Y, and Z." And he called out some effects that you guys did. We're going, "Okay, that was great." Hey, Jeff, guess what? You guys were really good tonight. Talk about that first. You guys did really good tonight, by the way.
By the way.
It is hilarious.
Because Tessa and Kimberly look so much alike.
Absolutely.
I just
changed my hair.
I said, which part of the black and blonde hair didn't you get?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the hair or the skin color?
No, yeah, there you go. Both, right? Well, she just got a tan.
But they've been a big part of our journey, and we're blessed to know them. And we've, like Jeff said, and Tess said, we've just talk shop. And when you have the same act, you can talk shop because you know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Just to talk about it.
Well, we talk about a bunch of other stuff too half the time. So because we really get to talk whenever we get to talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to talk to you. I know you guys have been busy and going back and forth on tabs and stuff.
We used to be very busy.
Right?
All of us.
Yeah.
But it seems like getting ready for this tonight is a lot more work than going out and doing a gig.
Yeah.
Because we don't have it permanently set up.
It's a different feeling, right?
It's
Production.
It's a tough gig. I mean, I've only done one Zoom, and you can't do it. I mean, you can't.
I got my practice with Zoom at the very beginning once we lost our shows. And, NACA, for college shows, they have the associate Zoom meeting. So 2 weeks after we lost all our work, I thought, well, let me go on and see what they're talking about. And that's how I started getting practice with Zoom, is doing a meeting like that. And so as I was doing it, I was learning things. I said, hey, if you have to do something off camera, you send the person in the waiting room. So I was saying that to Jeff, hey, these are all the tips just from doing that. So I got used to it very early and made it easier putting a blindfold on. This is a whole different thing. I don't know if you've done that yet, Kimmy, wearing a blindfold and doing a Zoom performance. It's
no.
Whole different ball game. Yeah.
I've just been making face masks.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to lower the blindfold a little bit when you go outside.
Right. Yeah. But you know what? I don't think we ever told you. We took the pictures of the ones you sent, but the flowery, beautiful ones fit Jeff better, and I wear the black ones. Well,
we're getting close to the end. We usually start to wrap up around this time. but we have 3 incredible couples. And I wonder if all of you will go in order of who's been together the longest. Or we'll go from shortest to longest. What is the secret to making it work? And what advice would you have for people who are considering it? Let's start with Michael and Victoria.
Mikey and Vic, go.
You know, it's a funny thing because I think
You get to go first?
well.
That's how you can tell they've been together the
guys. I love it.
Yeah, I will say the Evasons have been incredible role models because so many, we know so many people that are like, how do you do it? And even during quarantine, the pandemic, we know so many couples who are going through crazy stuff right now.
I didn't even know that it was an
Or yeah,
issue.
people that are like breaking up because they've never spent this much time together because of the pandemic. And we're like, this is what we do always anyways. And I think Evasons have set an amazing example because there's so many couples that they do it and you think they're perfect and they put out on social media how perfect it is. And then all of a sudden they break up and you're like, I thought it was perfect. You said it was perfect, which it, clearly wasn't. So they've set up a perfect example. And I remember, geez, a couple of years ago, I invited Jeff up. I was like, let me take you clothes shopping. We're going to get you some nice stuff. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go without Tessa. And I'm like, just come. I'll take you. We'll do it like a guy. And he said he hadn't spent a night apart from Tessa in 20 years. And I was like, oh, wow. Well,
I
we
don't
might
want to
do.
spend a night from Tessa in 20 years.
And for us, I think we're very lucky because even though we do a show together, we're sort of individual acts. Yeah. And it's become this thing that we both had our own thing before we came together. So we differ probably a little in that regard, but I think it's just
your own thing.
Yeah, being professionals that have been around enough and confident, just laid back people that nothing, like everything just rolls off their back, and they're the same way. And I think it's the same way for us as well.
It's about rolling. It's about being able to just not taking things far too hard. Some things are a little you can be underslept, you can be overworked, you can do a lot of other things. But then at the end of the day, some things can be a little elevated for no reason. And just being able to say, man, it's all good. It's another Monday. It's another Saturday.
Yeah, just really vibing with the right person. And it's totally doable. And a lot of couples should do it, but they need to do it not because I'm dragging someone into performing, because that's what I do. It should be because you both love it and you both really, really want it.
Am I dragging you into performing?
Well, let's take this question
the same way. And I'm sure they both love the stage, and no one's doing it for anybody, but themselves. And also with Jeff and Tess, they're incredible people individually, but together they're the best. And it's one of those things that, and we feel the same way. We can both work solo, and we're very fortunate, but our show is absolutely better together, and we complement each other.
But how everybody says, like half and half makes one. This is a perfect example of they are a whole simply because they are whole individually. Yeah. And that's because that's what makes the most incredible couple. And hopefully these other beautiful Devon. I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. And that's what makes everything so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure as well for you guys with a second side act, let's
kick it to Kimberly and one of the Jeffs. What have you guys learned, and what makes it work?
Patience, being patient, loving, and kind. And the key secret to a happy marriage is two good forgivers. Whether it's from the stage, and I didn't say that, I didn't say this, and Jeff knows what I'm talking about. After the show, there's always a show after the show. What you didn't say, what you did say, read between those lines. We just don't give. We don't give our life synthetic value. Give it real life value. And what's important and what's not important. And I think at the end of the day, we as entertainers collectively, especially everyone here, we do need that pat on the back because, I can speak for myself, not a validation junkie, but you have to have that because that's what we play off of the audience. And when you're just at home sitting on the couch, with your lovely, and there's no one else there, that's all you got is each other. And the act is the act, whether you're on stage or not, because you have to live the act. You got to be the act. And if you're not, then you really don't, in my opinion, you don't have the act. You know, so it's just, it's,
And something that I have to say about Dr. Tessa, because I got to hang out with them, you know, even by myself, you know, when we were in Oklahoma at the same time. Imagine that.
Yeah, that was great.
You guys are just the same people as you would see on stage. You're genuine, you're real, you're loving, you're kind. And you guys are kind to one another. You know, you show each other respect. And I think that says so much for a relationship and doing what we do. That's just part of it. And you have to have that. You really do.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. It's all good. All well thought.
And to other Jeff and Tessa, what do you think the secret is to making it last so long?
You know, I don't know if there's a secret. I think everything that the both couples have said is true.
Very relevant,
being kind to each other, but I also think that we're just the perfect match for each other. If there's such a thing as soulmates, I truly believe that. I come from a family where my grandparents were divorced. My grandfather 3 marriages, and the third one didn't last. And my parents, they were separated and remarried. In my dad's case, my mom, you know, she also was remarried. So. I don't know. I just grew up with a broken family and not consciously aware of not wanting that to happen in my case.
Right.
And not going out and looking for Tessa, because I told you the story, how it all happened between us. We were best friends before we ever had a relationship. And I think that's important.
I think that's the key.
Probably in our case, it's the key. Mm-hmm. And it's not conscious. I think we just flow really well together. It's just, we're in step. It's a yin and a yang, and I'm not the easiest person to be with at times, and neither is Tessa. Nobody is. We're not, you know, it's what we all see now together is not the way it is all the time, but it's how do you deal with the ups and the downs, and we just try to flow with it and avoid arguing if possible.
Yeah,
not always, but
you have to be an eternal flame. We did a radio spot one time, and this guy said, "You guys are eternal flames." He said that to us, and I feel like you guys are the same thing. And Tessa, you've probably heard of that, what an eternal flame is.
Oh yeah, I absolutely have, and I think that's true. And I think, as I said when I met Jeff, that I fell in love with him in that moment, and it was that spark for me that I sort of felt from that point on. Even if we never became a couple, I wanted him to be in my life always, because we had such this amazing bond. So I know the friendship is it, but we are both very strong individuals. We don't always agree the same thing. I think just about everything that comes up, even doing this podcast right away or webcast, right away we disagree about certain things, and you know, we move furniture and send it around and whatever. But at some point it just gels, and it's like, okay, I just had to do my thing and you had to do your thing, and now here we are. But we've also had a lot of fun together, and I think sailing helped to balance everything out, because as you guys all know, the entertainment is phenomenal, but it's very hard work. It's hard work making it look like it's not hard work.
Right.
And, so it just brings it all around to us, and all the other good stuff that you guys have said. So, and having friends that are couples, also having friends that you can open up to and just say something, even if it's the moment you're having an argument and can't see, and you can say it and you can trust them to not take that moment and share it with everybody else, so you can get it out of your system and get to the next place and let everything else go, so you can go back to having a good time together.
Well, I don't think you guys have just a tiny flame. I think you have a giant wall of fire. Yeah. I think that's a better way to describe your love, is a huge conflagration. Kimberly and Jeff Bornstein, Michael Dubois, Victoria Grinny, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to follow the Bornstein website, is jeffbornstein.com. If you want to check out Michael Dubois and Victoria Grinny, the Dubois, you can just go to The Great Dubois at The Great Dubois on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you, Harrison.
Love you guys. Great seeing you. Bye.
Bye.
And that brings us to our final question of the evening. Wow. I could do this literally all day. Actually, Bill Hoagland, I don't know if you know Bill, out on the East Coast, another fantastic show. That's thanks to you guys. But I always say, because there are young performers who are watching this, this is sponsored by the International Brotherhood of Magicians. If you had advice for the young performer be it a magician or just any kind of entertainer, what would that advice be?
What do you have for performers, women?
I would say for them to just do what you want to do. Just experiment with it and see where it takes you to. You don't really have a box to fit in. So therefore, don't try to put yourself in one. Just do what you feel works for you and learn as you go. And please don't be afraid to fail. You will fail. We all fail when we don't want to fail. And if you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go forward, you're going to find that you're creating an amazing craft. Love yourself, and you will do well at anything you put your mind to. That's what I think.
And all I can add is to that is I think doing material that is, don't fall in the habit or the trap of doing what everybody else is doing, because we see that all the time, and even more now, I think, with these Zoom shows, these virtual shows.
Yeah.
The material seems to overlap. So I used to say to a friend who was struggling to get ahead, and he did an illusion act, and he saw us move into mentalism, and boom, we were busier. And I used to say, do a pickpocket act. Nobody was doing a pickpocket act at the time. But find something that is different. It's all in the books. Hey, Peter Samuelson, nice to see you. So yeah, look for the material that is unique and it's you, and that you'll stand out from the crowd, because it's a big crowd these days.
I want to say something really quick. You know, with COVID and everybody being home and doing all these shows on Zoom, what we've learned is that the audience, the people watching you, are so forgiving, because we're all in the same situation, more or less. And so you have this amazing platform to actually perform and not do so well and maybe fail a little bit and figure it out, because you have an audience that's being very patient and very kind. So it's actually probably the best world, because that's always the problem. Where do you go to perform in the real world and fail and yet not lose upcoming opportunities? So this is it for sure.
No, that's amazing advice. And I can't thank you enough for being part of this program. If people are watching, want to follow you on social media, on Twitter, it's The EVASONS, @The EVASONS. And on Instagram, it's Mentalist Duo. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I love you guys to death. And although I shouldn't say that when there's a pandemic. I love you to life, and I hope you don't get anything. But thank you so much for joining us from Canada. And I hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Love it. You made our week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Tess and Jeff Evison, oh my God, an incredible episode, an incredible couple. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you'd like to join the IBM or renew your membership, all you got to do is go to magician.org/join-me-IBM/join. Our current president, Alexander, is doing a killer job, as is everybody involved in the IBM. So please support their work. You can support me as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Harrison Comedy. And if you'd like to download this episode and all other episodes as a podcast, you can just go to whobooks.com. You'll catch all the other episodes. This show is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, 4 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. So please tune in next Wednesday for our next episode. Thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to everybody who did the show. Bill Hers, we had so many amazing people. We had Linda Karen, we had the Dubois, we had the Bornsteins, we had Dale K. And of course, a huge thank you to the Evasons. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you next week. Take care. Cue in the animation, singing it now. Singing the song. I'm singing the song. Who books that with Harrison Greenbaum?